It's all about what's next. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and sign up for your free weekly newsletter. You'll also get 3 free reports. The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.
And welcome. You're listening to the Financial Survival Network. It's Kerry Lutz. We've got former Congressman John LeBoutillier with us now. We're doing an election postmortem again, but the question is, the Republicans have swept into office. What's next? And John, hey, welcome back. And I'm sure you've been contemplating this for a while. I know we talked about it before the election because, let's face it, it was more or less a foregone conclusion. But really, the question is, what are they going to do next? What can they do? What will they do?
Totally true. And that is what we do not have a clue about, really, because they wouldn't say before the election, when I was last on with you, we talked about this, that if you say what you're going to do and then you get elected, having said that, now you've got your game plan and you've got a mandate from the voters. But if you don't say what you're going to do, it's anybody's guess when you get in there what you would. And every different Republican I've heard since last Tuesday, Kerry, every one of them has a different interpretation of what happened in the election, what they were elected to do. One extreme is the Rush Limbaugh line, which is they were not elected to govern, they were elected to block Obama. Well, that to me is wrong because they've been elected to positions in the government, so they're going to have to govern. And if they govern well, then Republicans will begin to turn around their bad image. If they play to form and eat each other alive and complain and rip each other apart, we're going to ruin what's left of the Republican credibility forever. So it's very crucial that we govern well, and do well for the American people. That's what I want to say.
Absolutely. I mean, in large measure, they're there to block and stop his agenda, but that's not enough. I mean, the country is in horrid condition in so many levels that forget about it. So they've got to have an alternative vision for re-energizing and recharging the economy, which means getting the individual, you and I and everybody else out there, back to work. And that means, not being on the dole, not being on food stamps, not being on public assistance. It means, the individual, not the government, right?
Right. Yes, totally. And I want to mention something that I've learned in the last week that I think we should talk about for a minute, Kerry, is, first of all, I always say this, how you campaign will determine how you govern. If you run a negative campaign, I can assure you that when you're in office, it's going to be a negative experience because you're bringing a bad vibe in, and your MO is, trashing the other guy is not a way to govern the country. That's why everybody is so negative about our country now, about our government, because everything's negative commercials. Don't vote for him, he's a jerk. Instead of saying, look, here's what I'll do if you vote for me. So I learned last week of Senator Jim Inhofe of Oklahoma, Republican senator, who was a congressman right after I was in there, and then he became a senator. And it's Oklahoma. Yeah, it's a Republican state. But what he did this year is a very interesting little experiment. He, on April 4th, Kerry, he had 9 opponents running against him. And he made his mind up that he would not say a negative word about any of them. He would, in fact, never mention their names. He would never run negative commercials or flyers or mailings or anything. And for 210 days, I think was the count, that's the campaign he ran. All positive about what he, Jim Inhofe, was doing, was going to do, had done. All positive, positive, positive. And he ended up winning last Tuesday by more than he's ever won before. He won every one of the 77 counties in Oklahoma, and he won the highest plurality he's ever gotten, 68% of the vote. And it was the second highest plurality in the U.S. Senate, the highest being Jeff Sessions, who won because he had no opponent. There's something to be said for this, that a positive campaign talking to the voter about what you would do and will do and want to do might work more than anybody knows in politics now in this country. And I think we got to look at this and see if we can get some other candidates elsewhere to try it.
Yeah, well, it's right there in front of their faces if they just want to do it. It just.
Well, I think it's harder. If I'm running, let's say you're the incumbent, I'm running against you. You're well known, and I'm not. Okay. The theory has always been, I've got to knock your numbers down. I've got to trash you to take your numbers down because people end up voting against you, and then by dint of that, they'll vote for me. Now, that's always been the way it is. I've got to knock you down. I wonder if instead of that, if I ran all positive ads and said, well, I'm not knocking on Kerry, I'm not even going to mention him, but here's what I'll do if you elect me to the Senate. And I'll do this, this, and this. I wonder if that might not work, even against an incumbent. I don't know. They tend to vote for incumbents. They know them. Would they start voting against them if someone better came along? I don't know.
An interesting question.
Yeah, or you could do a combo of both. You could do Kerry voted to increase taxes. I will vote to cut them. And here's why I'm going to cut them. So it's a little dig at you, not terrible. And it's your record. After all, it shouldn't be negative campaigning if I hit your record. It's where if I imply that you're a bad person, that's a different deal.
It's personal, and it's really, it's just not, it's got nothing to do with the issues and the campaign. I mean, down here, John, we had Charlie Crist running against Rick Scott, and they were running back-to-back commercials. And 1 minute you got Rick Scott saying that Charlie Crist is a no-good, rotten liar. And a
lousy governor.
Yeah.
It said lousy governor.
Right. And then the next one.
Good politician, lousy governor.
Yeah.
I was there. I saw the ad.
Right. And then the next one right after it is, Rick Scott is a no good, rotten liar, and he's too shady for the Sunshine State. I mean, they just literally canceled each other out. It was absurd. And, I just watched them and shook my head and said, this is ridiculous. Nobody is buying any of this crap. And why would anybody? This is pointless. I mean, they're wasting their money on this, and they're wasting their time. And why bother? And neither of them. I mean, Rick Scott talked a little bit about what he did as governor, but, he said he added 600,000 jobs. Now, he no more added 600,000 jobs than I did. He can't take responsibility for that. I mean, he did maybe pursued policies that helped add 600,000 jobs, but neither of them, and Charlie Crist was governor 4 years before Rick Scott. He didn't mention anything that he did as governor during those 4 years, and nobody asked him. I mean, this is the most pathetic campaign, John, that I had ever seen in all my years, as a voter. And honestly, I wouldn't have voted for either one of them.
Well, that's how the voters feel. And therefore, if either one of them had tried the in-hall experiment, I wonder if they wouldn't have broken away and won a handy thing. I would say, if I'm Charlie Crist, say, I'm not going to say a word about Governor Scott. I'm just going to talk about what I did when I was governor and what I'll do if I'm your governor next time. Here's what I'll do.
Yeah.
And I'll be all positive and see. And part of being positive would be is I made a couple mistakes when I was governor, too. And here's what I did wrong. And I've learned from it. And I'm a human being. And I apologize. And I won't do that again. And that will score points if you admit you're a human being for once. None of these guys even think they're human, for God's sake.
Yeah. Like, when was the last time you heard a politician admit that he made a mistake? I can't even recall,
It's amazing. Amazing.
Really shocking. And, but interestingly enough, Mitch McConnell's press conference the next day, was a whole different side of that man than I had seen in the 20 years that I've known who he was. He sounded firm, strong. He threw out the olive branch saying, we'll work with him if he'll work with us. But you know how much chance there is of that. Speaking of the president, said, we're willing to work with him, but he's got to start treating us, right.
Right.
And, it was an interesting press conference. I think Boehner, I kind of wrote him off, and I feel like the country has written him off because he basically did nothing that he said he was going to do after he took over became the Speaker of the House, in 2010.
2010.
Yeah, in 2010, nothing happened. Hey, well, when we come back, let's talk about what your personal predictions are, what Obama's going to do, and what the Congress is going to do now that it's under the Republican leadership on the Financial Survival Network.
FSN Radio. It's all about what's next.
Worried about the coming dollar collapse? Then you need to speak to Tom Cloud today about buying gold and silver. It's the key to protecting your wealth from a declining dollar. Call him now at 800-247-2812. Tom will help you find the exact right bullion products to keep you safe. Would you believe that Tom's been in the business for 38 years? Tom understands these markets better than just about anybody. He's seen bull markets and he's seen bear markets, and he's not worried, and you shouldn't be either. When it comes to uncertain times like these, there's only one place to turn, and that's gold and silver. And Tom's offering all FSN listeners free shipping and insurance. So call Tom now at 800-247-2812. That's 800-247-2812, or visit cloudhardassets.com and tell him Kerry sent you.
The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.
And in case you just tuned in, we are speaking with former Congressman John LeBoutillier. Hey, you know him well on Fox News. He's got his own blog out there, and, well-spoken, outspoken, and right on point. We've been talking about this Republican wave, John and I, for the past 3 or 4 months. It's finally here, John. The wave has come, and we're going to see if it'll just recede in 2016 or whether it'll keep on coming or not, because if these guys don't do anything, and if immigration, because that at least in part they were elected to stop this out of control immigration.
That's the only thing they were elected for, was to stop Obama. There is no Republican wave. There's an anti-Obama wave. Mm-hmm. And the Republicans rode the wave very well. Now, the question is, having rode it into port and having the power now, can they turn the country into liking what Republicans stand for? And that's why the Mitch McConnell press conference was crucial, because it was upbeat. It was nice. It was positive. It wasn't dour and negative and scary. And that's what people think of the Republicans, very negative thoughts. And over time, we've got to turn it around. I mean, you and I lived through the heyday, I think, of Reagan Republicanism, where by the power of his personality, he made Republicans popular in this country. He was upbeat, smiley, nice, and the country liked it. And therefore, they started to like some of his policies. And we've lost all that, and we've got to get it back. And it's going to take time. And we don't have a president yet, so it's got to be various figures in Congress. What I worry about coming here is Republican on Republican violence, in effect. That the half the House is going to revolt against the establishment with the help of Ted Cruz in the Senate. They're going to demand that we do this instead of that. And McConnell and Boehner will not be able to set the priorities in the order they want. And they'll be dragged along again, as they have in the past, into doing something that's not smart politically. For instance, a year ago, the government shutdown. They didn't want to do it, but the Tea Party wing made them do it. And it was a disaster for the Republicans, and we knew it would be a disaster.
In retrospect, I would argue on that, John. In retrospect, not such a bad thing, because what happened after that was the introduction of healthcare.gov, which was a total disaster. The escalation of premiums that tens of millions of Americans have had to pay, healthcare premiums, and tens of millions of Americans losing their coverage. So effectively, what they get to say is, we tried to stop it. We did our best. We even shut down the government. Sorry, we couldn't do it, but this is what we tried to spare you from.
Yeah, but they didn't need to say that. They didn't need to do it. It didn't work. Mm-hmm. It made no sense. It hurt the image of the GOP. To this day, we still have a very bad image. Mm. And we stepped all over the story of Obamacare for 16 days because it was the same day. The shutdown and the rollout were the same day, October 1st. Mm-hmm. If we hadn't done the shutdown, boom, we get right away from the get-go, the failure of government healthcare.gov is the top story in the country. It ultimately became the top story. Yeah, Republicans have survived it, but what is the thinking, Kerry? Mm-hmm. How can you honestly, as senators, shut the government down and get nothing for it? We got nothing. We didn't get a trade with Obama where he cut back on something. We got nothing. Mm-hmm. Well, how is that smart?
Yeah, well, I will buy that, the strategy didn't work out, but I don't think.
Well, why didn't they be smarter and defund HHS? That I could see.
Yeah.
Because the public would go along with that. Because they didn't like Obamacare, so they said, well, we're not going to provide the money for this thing. That's different. But shutting down all government stuff, they didn't shut everything down, but whatever they shut down.
It really wasn't a shutdown either, let's face it. That was a fake shutdown.
Whatever it was, it did not help the Republican image. Mm-hmm. And it raises, if we do it again, of doubling down on a mistake. And same thing with impeachment. If Obama does something unilateral on immigration in the next month or two or three, and you and I talked off air that he may just be bluffing and he may not do anything. But if he does do something big, will Republicans take the bait and start talking about impeachment? Because that won't work. We will not impeach the man. It will be a political disaster, again, if we do that kind of thing, versus smart government, which would be defund whatever he does under an executive action. We have the power of the purse. We can stop it through not funding it. It's not sexy, but it'll work. Yeah. We'll see if they'll do it.
All right. What about, John, let's talk about the fact that Eric Holder, probably the most lawless attorney general in the history of the United States, finally threw in the towel. And now that you see the disclosures coming out on Fast and Furious, totally understandable why. What do they do with his replacement? This woman, Loretta Lynch, she appears to be clean, but they need to vet her, don't they?
Well, the good news as of now, I've heard, is they've acknowledged that she will not have her confirmation hearings until the new Senate is sworn in the winter. So the Republicans will be running her confirmation.
Right.
And they probably want that. I wouldn't get too hung up on her. I don't think it's a big deal for the last 2 years that she's going to be AG. It's not the same as a Supreme Court pick, which is obviously a lifetime appointment. And that's another good reason that we've gotten the Senate, is we will be running for the rest of Obama. Mm-hmm. All judicial appointments will be going through the Republican Senate, and that will force Obama a little bit away from the left. So that's good. That's good.
Yeah. Well, there's a rumor that there's a real war going on between Obama and Harry Reid right now, and that's why he's allowing all the appointments, waiving them from the lame duck session of Congress. They're only going to pass what they have to pass, and everything gets sent over to the Republicans in the new Congress. And because he's had it.
Could be. By the way, I wouldn't bet my life that Harry Reid is the minority leader when we get to 2015. think there's going to be a move among Democrats to get rid of him.
Think so?
I have a feeling. Yeah, I think Charles Schumer is behind it.
Yeah, you think Schumer is going to be the next minority leader, huh?
I don't know, but I think he's looking at it and seeing if he could pull it off. And what fuels him is Wall Street money.
Oh, yeah.
He can get money for these senators who are up for re-election. There are a lot of them in 2016, the third of the Senate.
Mm-hmm.
And he may make the move, but Harry Reid's day is come and gone. So we'll see. It'll all happen in the next few weeks.
Well, yeah, that, well, hey, Harry Reid's at his weakest point right now, right? And that's when you go after people when not at their strongest, when they're at their weakest. He just suffered it. Look, how many seats did the
Well,
Democrats
I think they're going to lose 9. I think they're going to lose 9. Yeah.
When Mary Landrieu finally has her runoff.
That's right.
Yeah. So it looks like Begich will lose.
He's gone.
Alaska almost for certain. And,
so that's 8. That's 8. Yeah. And we wait a month for Landrieu.
And she's kind of outlived her usefulness to the good people of the great state of Louisiana, because she's no longer head of the Senate Energy Committee. So, and that was her whole reason for being there. So she's gone. And so we're looking at 54 to 46. And all under Harry Reid's auspices. So time to sweep the decks, huh?
Could be.
What about Nancy Pelosi?
No, I hear that they're not doing that over there.
Surprising,
they should.
A clean broom.
They should get rid. They should clean it all out. Get new faces.
Yeah.
But they're so liberal over there. They don't see things the way we do.
Yeah. Well, and the map. Right? Wasn't the map very startling, John?
Oh my God, it's all red.
Yeah, and
amazing.
It makes real harder to get the outcome they want through manipulation and voter fraud and whatever else. When you look at a map like that, they have to get a guy like Bill Clinton in order to win for president. There's just no other way, right?
Well, and you can't have Bill Clinton alone. He never got a majority of the vote. You have to have Ross Perot sucking 19% the first time and 9% the second time away in order to have a Bill Clinton win.
Yeah, and
that's for another show that we'll do together is 2016 and how does Hillary look, and is Hillary inevitable for the nomination or not? That's a fascinating topic.
Yep. And next time we will discuss that. For now, we're done. John, just tell us your blog, where we find you. And
it's johnlebout.com, JOHNLEBOUT, johnlebout.com. And don't forget to watch Political Insiders every Sunday night, Fox News Channel Live, 7:30 p.m. East Coast time.
All right. And you'll find the link to all that on my site, financialsurvivalnetwork.com. Don't forget to sign up for a free newsletter. John, always a pleasure. We will talk with you again real soon.
Thank you, Kerry.
FSN Radio. It's all about what's next. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and sign up for your free weekly newsletter. The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.